I'm happy to be introducing our next speaker. Our next speaker works on ENS, the Ethereum naming service. And Nick Johnson, will be talking about solving Zooko's triangle. So let's give it up for Nick.
Hello. Before I get started, I wonder if I can just ask for a show of hands. How many people here have heard of ENS? Great. Keep your hands up if you think you know what it does. And keep your hands up if you think you know how it works. So the three of you can go, and everyone else can stick around. So I'm going to go over a quick intro to ENS, go over what we've done so far and what we're expecting to do next, and then dig into a bit of detail on the permanent registrar, which is going to be replacing the current interim registrar we've got, and the auctioning off of short names, and then how you can prepare for these changes. So first of all, what is ENS? What are the components of ENS, and what have we achieved so far? So Zooko Wilcox, the author of Zcash, before he got involved with cryptocurrency, proposed this thing called Zooko's triangle. And his trilemma was that it's impossible for a naming system to be human meaningful, decentralized, and secure all at the same time. You can have any two of those three. So if you look at something like DNS, it's human meaningful and arguably secure, but it's not decentralized. If you look at something like .onion names, they're decentralized and they're secure, but they're not human meaningful. And he was pretty much right about this up until the advent of decentralized consensus systems such as proof of work and other blockchain systems. So ENS's goal is pretty much solving Zooko's triangle. We're trying to offer a secure and decentralized way to address resources, both on and off the blockchain, using simple human-readable names. So trying to solve a significant trilemma and make it sort of easy, improve usability for Ethereum and other blockchains while we're doing it. So ENS, at its technical level, has two basic components. We've got the registry, which is a single smart contract, and it maintains a list of every single domain inside ENS. And for every single domain, it stores the current owner of that domain, and it stores the contract responsible for resolving the domain, which is answering questions about the domain. And then the second main component is resolvers. Resolvers translate names into addresses. So looking up a resource in ENS then is a two-step process. First, you ask the registry which resolver is responsible for inigomontoya.eth. And it returns an address, and then you ask that resolver what Ethereum address is associated with inigomontoya.eth, or what website or IPFS hash or whatnot. And then you'll notice a third bullet point, which is registrars. Registrars are what allocates ownership of new names in the ENS system. The reason I haven't listed it as a major component is because a registrar is very simply any smart contract that owns a name. Anyone who owns a name can create subdomains, and if that owner happens to be a smart contract, then it can follow a set of rules for doing so. So ENS timeline to date, we launched back in May the 4th, Star Wars Day 2017. We've had a couple of workshops since where we've got people together from all around the world to sort of brainstorm and work on future ENS improvements. In May 2018, we got a significant grant from the Ethereum Foundation. They sent us $1 million to pay for ongoing development. And that's the point at which ENS went from one person part-time, myself, and a number of dedicated volunteers to a full-time resource project. And that's when we were really able to sort of put the motor on ongoing development. July 2018, we relaunched with our new logo and everything. Looks much more impressive, I think you'll agree. And September last year, we announced launch of integration with DNS, and that means that in the near future, and right now for .xyz, you can take any DNS domain and you can import it into Ethereum and into the ENS system and use it just like you would an ENS domain. So for instance, if you own myname.xyz, you can use myname.xyz inside Ethereum. And then finally, in January, we relaunched our manager. We've got a really nice management tool for ENS names at manager.ens.domains. Brantley joined our team. He is our developer outreach person. He's been doing an amazing job of getting more people on board. And if you want to help your product integrate ENS, then come ask him or me afterwards. And we added support for better integration with IPFS and with Swarm with a change called EAP 1577. So the next thing I'm going to do is talk to you about the permanent registrar. I'll go over a quick recap of the current registrar and how it works, talk about like how we've decided on the changes that we're making, introduce you to the permanent registrar, and then also talk about the next step after that, which is how we're going to allocate ownership of shorter names. So first of all, the current registrar, which we call the auction registrar or the interim registrar, was launched on May the 4th, 2017, along with ENS itself. And it was designed to be a straightforward and fair and a sort of reasonable first step for name allocation. It uses an auction-based system. You have a 5-day-long auction during which you first commit to bidding on a name and then later reveal your bid. And it worked pretty well for initial name allocation, where you have the sort of land rush effect of people all trying to come in and buy the same name at the same time. And its goal was to sort of provide us with the insight and experience of building a naming system, operating it, and seeing what would work the best in the long run. And it's done a pretty good job at that. We've identified what the shortcomings of it are and where it succeeds, and we're trying to integrate that into our future work. So in terms of how we use that experience to inform our future work, I just wanted to go over briefly how we sort of try and involve the community in our development and make sure that this is something that everyone buys into, something that people feel included in, and that they have a meaningful input to. So we start off by identifying the key things that we need to solve and improve on, and we debate them internally with the team and try and come up with proposals for solutions, and then present those to the community. We have a really active community on discuss.ens.domains, and so when we've got something we think is mature enough to withstand critique, we'll post it there, get a whole lot of feedback, and then sort of iterate the loop, come back with to the team, talk more, develop it further. So for instance, with the permanent registrar and the 3 to 6 character auctions, we gathered up community feedback through a series of forum posts, and we made real substantial changes to how it operated in response to that. We got some excellent feedback that helped us refine how it works. So the new permanent registrar, it replaces the current ENS registrar, and its existing names will be migratable over from the existing registrar to the new one. There's a short delay there if you've registered a name in the last 28 days before we migrate, so that's pretty much from today onwards. Then you'll have to wait a short while before you can migrate it. But otherwise, if you have any name on the existing registrar, you can migrate that over to the new registrar. When you do so, your registration is extended until May the 4th, 2020. And you get the entirety of your deposit back. So if you purchased a name on the original registrar, you bid for the name, and the money that you bid was locked up in a deed contract and held. When you migrate the name, you'll get back the entirety of that deposit immediately. And your name ownership will be extended until 2020. The goal is that it's going to run more or less indefinitely until we identify any issues that deserve a replacement, and we've built it to be easily extendable and upgradable. So other key characteristics are pricing. Unlike the previous system, this uses a rental system. It'll cost $5 per domain per year for shorter names, and I'll go over for longer names, and I'll go over the details in a minute. Use of overflow funds, how we intend to distribute the funds, and renewal. So let me just give you a side-by-side. So the existing system uses an auction system, but the new one will be instant registration. So instead of a 5-minute auction, it'll be a 1-minute process. You have to send 2 transactions instead of 3. We'd like to get it down to 1, but front running is something we're really concerned about. So you send a single transaction to commit to buying the name, send a second one at least a minute later, and the name is yours. So instead of being 5 days, it'll be 10 minutes, or actually we've recently shortened the lockup period. It's now only 1 minute long. In order to keep the name, you have to renew it. So you pay $5 a year. You can pay that as far in advance as you want. You can pay it year at a time. If you want to keep the domain for 100 years, you can pay 100 years worth right now, and you can be pretty algorithmically guaranteed that you're going to keep the name. The registration fees in the original registrar were locked up and got returned at the end, but in the permanent ENS registrar, they will be sent to the ENS root key holders for distribution. So why are we charging a cost? And that's mostly to prevent land grabs and squatting. We've seen from other distribution name systems, such as Namecoin, that if you make names available freely, then people will come in and they will register as many as they possibly can and then resell them. And the end result is that you end up with a very illiquid system, one where it's extremely difficult to get a useful name. So by imposing a small fixed cost, we want to make it more practical to get names that are desirable and usable, and make it less practical for people to engage in mass registration. So names that will be 5+ characters will be just $5 a year, and for the very scarce 3 and 4 character names, registration will be significantly more expensive. Fees are paid in ETH, and we're using Maker's DAI Oracle in order to set that at a fixed price in US dollars. The intention is that the funds get sent to the ENS root multisig. We've selected them because they're already part of the governance process, and it will be up to them to decide how to distribute fees. Our hope is that they will look favourably on requests from teams such as ourselves to help fund ongoing ENS development. And should we have an excess of funds, then we hope that they will be inclined to fund broader efforts in the ENS ecosystem and indeed in the Ethereum ecosystem as a whole. So finally, and I can see I'm running out of time, so I may have to race a little, we're going to run a one-time auction for shorter names, because previously the shortest name you could register was 7 characters, and we now want to shorten that down to 3 characters. We're going to run a one-off auction very similar to the original ENS registrar, using a Vickery auction system to reserve names. Before that, it will be possible to reserve names used in the community. So we really think that ENS is more useful the less surprising it is, and part of that is ensuring that existing teams that have built up a reputation in the community can have a name that reflects their team. So we'll be starting the deployment on May the 4th, and then we'll be starting the reservation process shortly thereafter, 60 days afterwards, on July the 3rd. So anyone who has an existing DNS domain will be able to reserve an ENS domain. It must have been registered before 1st of January 2019, and you'll be able to do that by submitting a claim to an open GitHub repo with the name that you want and the name that you have, and proof that you have the name in the form of a text record that you add into your DNS record. If you have an exact match, you can claim that. If you have concatenation, for instance, bit.fish, you can claim bitfish.eth. If you have the reverse, for instance, aseth.fr, you can claim as.eth. They were very insistent on that. And there's a few other teams, of course, that include ETH as well. In the case that there's multiple teams trying to claim the same name, then the oldest DNS name will take precedence. So how can you prepare? This is going to be really quick. If you're an existing name holder, you will have to migrate within a year of the registrar launch. You have a full year to do it. If you don't, you will lose the name. Someone else can register it, but you can always recover your deposit. There is no time limit on recovering the deposit that you put down. You can do that at manager.ens.domains and other partners to be launched. If you are intending to register a name, you can do it now on the existing registrar, or as soon as the migration happens, you can do it more quickly and easily on the new registrar. If you run a third-party app or are seeking to, any existing name resolution remains exactly the same as it was before, no change whatsoever. If you offer registration services, you'll need to change to use our new API, and you can find the docs at docs.ens.domains. So we want to help you come to our Gitter, which is in Ethereum/GoEthereum/name registry for legacy reasons. We have a discourse instance on discuss.ens.domains, and contact Brantley or myself, and we will be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much.